welcome everyone to OnPoint Technologies and PCM Microsoft webinar today. We are thrilled to have you with us for today's webinar, which is Microsoft Windows 10 security features made for Surface. To speak on this topic, today we have Steve Adams, who is the device guy, Microsoft Corp. Before leading into our main presentation, we have got some housekeeping items. Please remember to enter your questions in the question box on your right-hand side, and I will relay those over to our speaker at the end of the presentation. There's also a survey which will be emailed to you guys after the presentation is over, which will be referral entry and a chance for you guys to win a $50 Amex gift card. This is also a recorded session, and the recording will be up for viewing in the next 1 week. And with that, I am happy to give it straight to Steve. Steve, you're on now.
Thank you very much, Norman. Welcome, and thanks, Norman. I am Steve Adams, the device guy at Microsoft Corporation. And this year we're focusing more on really helping everyone understand around those things that are especially good on Surface. So with the Windows Defense Stack, we look at it in two ways. We look at both pre-breach, so how do we protect our users from ourselves, and then also if something happens, how do we look at that? How do we go back and look at things that have happened? So to start off, the first thing we look at is how do we protect the device? And we do that with this really sexy sounding term, Windows Device Health Attestation. And what this really means is we're constantly giving Windows 10 computers a health check, if you would. And so to put this in like plain English terms, it's sort of like my father, who had to have open heart surgery. And before he had open heart surgery, they're like, hey, before we do anything, we want to make sure that you're overall very healthy. So they had him do a full body CAT scan to look at everything as one of the diagnostics. That's an example of what Windows Device Health Attestation is it's like a constant full body scan for your computer. Now in my father's case, they sent that information to his doctors. In the Windows 10 case, we send that to your management tool, whether that's Intune or possibly AirWatch or Mobile Iron or System Center. So this is how we protect the hardware before the user even logs in or connects to our corporate network. So that's Windows Device Health Attestation. Once that's good, then we also at the device level have something called a TPM chip. And the TPM chip literally is a physical chip on the motherboard. The Surface family, both the Surface Hub and the Surface Pro 4, have a TPM version 2.0 chip. And a lot of the enterprise level security features we're going to be talking about today are in fact TPM 2.0 chip required to make them work. So before we had TPM, we had sort of a very weak way to protect passwords. And I like this guy. He looks like a fun guy, but he's not someone that I would think represents what I'm looking for security. But this was the kind of experience we had back with Windows 7 prior to a TPM chip. Now, with the TPM chip, everything's encrypted. It's related to the hard drive or to the hardware. Can't be taken out and put in a different machine. And it really is a storage container for all the different pieces of security. So we sort of like to think, no longer are we using files on a hard drive that are weak, but we're in fact using this new very strong way to protect all of our security information on a machine with TPM. One of the features that's supported by TPM at a device level, continuing to protect that device, is this concept of Device Guard. And what Device Guard is Device Guard takes a white list of applications. So a list of a specific list of applications that we want to run, and we marry that with the encryption and the virtualized security based on the TPM to create a locked down environment. And so what does this really mean? This means that for a given piece of hardware that utilizes Device Guard, no matter who logs into that machine, even if they have the keys, Device Guard is going to prevent other applications from running. Now, I'm going to warn you, this isn't something we want to do for our productivity users, for our average user. But one of our agencies in the U.S. government, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or ATF, is actually looking at using Device Guard for their devices that they use out in the field, because they have had issues with machines being used when they're out on a case, and those machines having access given to them from unauthorized people. Someone walks away from a machine, for example, and doesn't log out. And that gives us the opportunity, as we've seen in the spy movies, to insert a USB drive that has a malicious application on it that goes out and grabs all this the information. Well, with Device Guard, we can't plug that stick in and run an executable or even a web-based executable. So again, we're using this for specific purposes, specific secure devices, and not necessarily our productivity users. So that's three ways we really focus on protecting the hardware, protecting the device. The next area we look at is how do we protect our users? And many people say, you know, the number one security risk within our company is the people themselves. And a lot of that pain comes around passwords. So we've done some really cool stuff to help protect the passwords and the identities and the secure information that folks have. One of those ways is something we call Credential Guard. And in technical terms, Credential Guard is the virtualization-based security technology we use along with the TPM chip that lets us avoid the security attack known as pass the hash. Now, what pass the hash does is says if I can get into your house, if I can get into your computer and get access to one machine that has administrative rights, I can then exploit that and get access to everything. And the trick is, how do we lock down those administrative rights? So with Credential Guard, I like to use the analogy of getting a new car. So I buy a new car, really proud of it, have it out in my driveway, I'm washing it, and go in to maybe have a bite of lunch and let the sun dry it. Now in this case, it's a really fancy car. And so someone walks along and says, oh, look at that fancy car sitting in the driveway. I may want to steal it because I'm a bad guy. So how does the car, and the car represents our data and our systems, right? So how does the bad guy do that? Well, in this scenario, he may go looking for the key. If the garage door is left open, he may walk in. I have this exact same key holder in my garage that all of my car's keys sit on. So he may just literally walk into the garage and say, hey, that looks like a Lamborghini key, and drive off. He could break into a window. He could wait till we're asleep and then sneak in, again, if they want to get in. If the key's just hanging there, and again, the key is our credentials in Windows 10. If the key's easily available, then he's going to be able to take that key and take the car. Now, what we do with Credential Guard is we actually take that key and move it into that TPM chip that I talked about, move it into a safe place, a place that's encrypted and not easily available. So no longer, even if someone, in this case, gets into my garage, if someone gets into my house, if someone breaks into my computer, no longer can they get access to that key, or in our case, to our public and private keys, to the credentials we use to get to corporate access. So again, that breaks the pass the hash. So again, that's called Credential Guard. Now both Device Guard and Credential Guard were key to us winning the Department of Defense Windows 10 project that I'll talk about in a few minutes. So we look at this and we really come to the realization for our users, okay, we do a great job of protecting the administration and the administrative rights on computers with Credential Guard, but when we come around full circle, we realize, hey, for most of our end users, passwords are bad, right? Passwords are not convenient. They have to be complex. When things are inconvenient and complex, what do? Most of our users have a tendency to write them down, put them on a sticky note. If we're lucky, under their keyboard, or maybe right on their monitor. If you're my mom, for example, I know anytime I need to access her computer, because I am her IT support, I simply go to her desk, open her desk drawer, and on top of her desk drawer is a Mead spiral-bound notebook, probably left over from my school days, clearly labeled on the front passwords. So with Windows 10, we really want to focus on eliminating the need for the use of passwords. We do that a couple ways. So to look at this, though, I kind of want to share, besides people writing it down, why passwords are bad and why they're not the best way to authenticate into a machine. And to do that, I want to sort of look at the history of passwords. And so I'm going to share my history of my password, and I'd like for you all to play along with me and sort of do the same thing as you would. And if you would, I am going to share my password, so please don't share it. I don't want the word getting out. So when my very first time I had to create a password, I'm going to age myself a little bit here, and no, I don't live with my mom. I had to create a password for AOL and for Prodigy and GE Online and CompuServe. These were dial-up systems that we accessed back in the day of dial-up modems. So the very first password I had to create, I went out and I said, what's something that's familiar with me, that I'm familiar with? And I looked over at my bedside, and I saw on my bedside table my friend, my goldfish. And this was someone, he's always there for me, always entertaining. So it's like, yeah, that's something I remember. So, of course, I used his name. His name was Tiger. I used his name as my very first password. Well, the Internet came along, and my ISP, dial-up ISP back in the day, said, okay, you have to have a password, but it has to be a little more complex. It has to have a capital letter. So I, of course, changed my password to, and you can all shout it out in your microphones if you want to play along, capital T-I-G-E-R. And that was great. So it was on the Internet, and this great website came out called Blockbuster.com. And Blockbuster.com allowed me to go look at the video, the movies that I could potentially go to the store and rent when it first came out. But they had a password requirement, as it has to be 6 characters. And also it has to have a number. So as you may suspect, my password became capital T-I-G-E-R and then the number 1. Well, I really enjoyed videos, but I also enjoyed getting discounts on great food. And Pizza Hut came out with their website, and they said, okay, we have this great website, but you have to have a password that's more complex, has to be 8 characters. So, of course, I changed it and made it capital T-I-G-E-R 001. Hopefully all of you are following along in your experience, and maybe you've done something like this. Of course, as time goes on, it has to be more complex. The next rule when I joined Microsoft was has to be 8 characters. Okay, got that checked. Has to have a capital letter. Okay, capital T, I'm good. Has to have a number. Yep, 001 counts as a number. But the next thing they added in is one additional complexity. You have to have a special character. So, of course, I turned my I upside down and used an exclamation point. I think you all see where this is going. So it keeps going till my password today, of course, looks something like this. I'm on my 83rd iteration, have a couple special characters, have some O's where zeros go, 3's where E's go. So as we've done this, we've found an interesting phenomenon is people that had their original password, and as you know, my real password is not Tiger, but people use their pets' names, family names, kids' names, whatever. We found that oftentimes people do use the same conceptual password most of their lives, or most of their lives today. Why is this bad? Well, we did a study not too long ago, a little research project, where some security folks at Microsoft gathered some information from folks susceptible guinea pigs like me to find out how easy is it to get someone's password from the dark web. So they went out and they took some basic information from me, favorite pet, pet's name, school mascot, mother's maiden name, father's middle name, and went out and looked for my information. And as a matter of fact, they found 4 different sources that had information about me. And so, of course, for $10,000, they could have bought that. We didn't buy any of it. But what we found out is they had information at the capital TIGER #1 space, right, at a point in time. So somewhere about the time I created Blockbuster account, that information got out there. And of course, I pause and think about it. It's like, did I go out to Blockbuster when we knew they were going out of business and decommission my account? No, I didn't, right? So there's a lot of ways this information gets out there. Scary part of this, of course, is that there are tools also on the dark web where if someone has an email address and 4, 5, or 6 characters of someone's potential password, they can go out and use it to guess their password on a bunch of common websites. Amazon, Hilton, you name it, right? Dunkin' Donuts, all the different places we have apps. And what they found is those tools can typically find, if they have 4 or 5 characters of a password, and they take into account all the special characters and such, they can typically get into someone's account and get their information on one of these websites within a couple hours, 2 to 4 hours. And if it's a complex password like the one I've got on the bottom, that could take maybe a couple days. As opposed to if they don't have any information about my password, that takes weeks or even months to guess a password. So the reality of it is using passwords, we have to have complex passwords, but using those are typically a bad thing. And with Windows 10, to make life a lot easier, we've come out with something called Windows Hello. And this is absolutely positively the best way to log in with Windows 10. Now, the beauty of Windows Hello is two-factor authentication. So if anyone has used the RSA token ID or RSA key, or they have an app that gives them a unique token to log in, that's how we've done it for the last several years. That's difficult, right? Do I have my key with me? Do I type it in fast enough, etc.? Do I want to pay for that feature or having that capability? So with the Surface family, and here I'm going to show you the Surface Book, which has that TPM 2.0 chip in it, as does the Surface Pro 4. That TPM chip on our device becomes our first factor of authentication. So if I think about it, with Windows Hello, I take all of my public keys, all of my private keys, and store them on the TPM chip. Now that's encrypted. No one has ever been able to decrypt a TPM chip and pull information off. So when I say public keys and private keys, on my machines, for example, it has my work account, my Microsoft information. So my keys for that, my passwords for that. Has LinkedIn and Facebook and Dropbox. It also has my Microsoft account, you know, my at Outlook or at Hello or at Hotmail or at Link or you know, any of those. So Hotmail is the most common. Has all of that built into it as well. So what we do is we take that stored on a TPM chip and then we make it easier to log in. How do we do that? So the first thing we do is we use recommend a PIN. And if you've set Windows 10 up for the first time, you'll know, like, the third question we ask you for is, hey, passwords are bad. We want you to set up a 4-digit PIN. Now, I always get a lot of pushback on this where people say, hey, Steve, what are you talking about? A 4-digit PIN is nowhere near as secure as a password. And we do contend that, in fact, it is. Why is that? Well, same brain exercise as the password is, what was the first thing you created a PIN for? For most of us, it was our ATM card. And for many of us, our ATM card PIN is the same as it was when we first got it. In my case, 20-some, almost 30 years ago. My PIN is also a couple other places. It was my analog voicemail PIN to get access to my voicemail from my phone service. It's also the PIN I use to open my garage door with my keypad. Well, so I use it several places, but what's different about the password is I never have to write it down, right? And assuming it's not 1234 or 1357 or something easily guessed, and I make sure my PIN is not any kind of sequence like that, it's very difficult to guess. The other thing about it is I've never put it out on the internet anywhere, right? I never shared my PIN with Blockbuster or Pizza Hut or Microsoft or anyone else. So it is something that's uniquely mine. So the first easiest way to do it is PIN. But even with Surface, we make it even easier than that. So we have the ability to do biometrics. And with the Surface family, we do this option on the right, which is facial recognition. That's because in the Surface family, we have something called the Hello camera. And it's not just a 2D camera. It actually has technology based on the Xbox Kinect device, which is a 3D spatial recognition. It uses lasers and a bunch of little dots. And so with facial login with Windows Hello, it actually doesn't take a picture. It actually does some math. If you see in this image, it measures the distance from the right earlobe to the left earlobe. It measures the difference between, or the distance between your eyes, the depth of your nose from the tip to your top lip, and does this algorithm and stores that algorithm in that TPM chip, right? It's not a picture. Someone can't take your picture and hold it up and do this. The other interesting thing it does is it actually checks for liveness. So, you know, the old James Bond trick of cutting off someone's finger or dragging their body over to the fingerprint scanner, none of that works anymore. These cameras are sensitive. They can actually see the blood flowing through your face when it does the recognition. So all told, this concept of Windows Hello is not only more productive. Literally, my machine logs in securely when I sit down in my chair before my hands ever touch my keyboard. So it really is a better way to log in, and Surface brings this technology to you. The other thing we look at is after we protected the hardware, protected the people, the next thing we look at is how do we protect our information. So how we do that is we look at protecting, first of all, the hard drives. So with Windows Pro and Windows Enterprise, we have a feature from Windows 7 called BitLocker. And BitLocker now automatically encrypts your hard drive and can also encrypt USB drives. So if we lose them or if our device is stolen, without that 2 factors of authentication, the information is unreadable from these hard drives, from those drives. So we'll see that, for example, people can't take a drive out of a machine, put it in another machine, and read it. Remember that TPM chip. It's locked to that TPM chip. We've also, with the anniversary update, that's our update that just recently came out, we also have, 1607 is the number, by the way. We also have this new technology called Windows Information Protection. Now, Windows Information Protection takes all the security stuff where we've protected programs and protected the hardware, and literally takes it down to the file level, the document level. So in this case, for example, we have two documents on my hard drive. We have a cookie recipe and we have a super secret marketing presentation. Now, these are common things that everyone has on their machine. I have cookie recipe, I have a birthday party presentation. I also have a spreadsheet that is my forecast for everything that's coming up for business. Well, with Windows Information Protection, we now have the ability to systematically, through our management tools like Windows Intune or AirWatch, our MDMs, we have the ability to turn this on and say, hey, let's watch the files that are protected from a corporate perspective or from an organization perspective, and let's treat those differently than we do personal files. How's it work? So in this case, we're going to use OneDrive. So let's say I wanted to copy my cookie recipe from my hard drive out to my personal OneDrive. I copy the file across, it stores on OneDrive, everything's great, thumbs up, worked perfectly. Now let's say for whatever reason, maybe I accidentally am dragging something I shouldn't, but let's say maybe something a little more nefarious than that. I want to share or back up some information that I may find useful at a later date. So in this case, I want to move this, I'm trying to sneak this marketing presentation from my PC, which I have full rights to, onto my personal OneDrive. What happens then? So I copy the file over, and one of two actions are going to happen. One thing may happen is nothing will happen. I may not be allowed to copy that work document onto my OneDrive. But there are times when maybe that makes sense. For example, maybe we have someone in marketing that's responsible for social media. So it may make sense that they copy and paste something out of a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation onto Twitter. And we protect that kind of interaction as well. Well, if it's copying a file for valid reasons and they have permission to do so, what we actually do is we give them a pop-up that says, hey, here's what's going to happen. We want you to confirm that you're copying content that's protected by our organization's assets to a destination that we don't have control over. If you're sure you want to do this, we're going to note this, right? We're going to log this in a log file that this happened, and then we're going to let you confirm that you actually want to do that. So this is called Windows Information Protection. Prior to the anniversary update of Windows, this was called Enterprise Data Protection, but we did want to open it up and give it a more friendly name. So Windows Information Protection is how we keep our private stuff and our work stuff, our personal stuff and work stuff, separate in our environment. So next thing I want to talk about is protecting the world from the user and our computer from threats, malware, spyware, and such. And the first thing we do is we have built into Windows, and have for a long time, Windows Defender. And if you've used Windows 10 and Windows Defender, like most antivirus products, you have a screen that looks a lot like this. It runs a regular check. It keeps its signatures updated. With Windows 10, we've taken it a little further because we know that the bad guys are smart, right? And they have access, or they're smart enough to say, hey, I have a new way to break in that I know on a given PC, or if I go to a website and say, hey, click this link to watch this cute kitten video, they could have stuff that they just came up with today that wasn't in the latest signatures. So what we actually have now is the ability with Windows 10 and Windows Defender to turn on cloud-based protection. And what cloud-based protection does is it gives us the ability to watch real-time, based on telemetry and information we're getting, watch behaviors. And we can actually see events happening real-time and turn on ways to reduce that threat real-time. And I'm going to show you Smart Screen here in a second. So cloud-based protection is literally by-the-minute protection based on research and real-time signature delivery all kinds of crazy stuff that happens up in our cloud is what we use for within Windows 10 to take that antivirus one step and anti-malware one step further. We also use that same technology on Windows Smart Screen. And Windows Smart Screen is how we use browsing the web and protecting people from malicious websites. So in this case, for example, let's say I'm using Bing, and to do a search or to type in the address bar, and let's say I type something wrong. So let's say I'm going to go to Microsoft, and instead of typing M-I-C-R-O-S-O-F-T, maybe I'm typing too fast and forget the T. Well, Microsoft.com is actually a malicious website based on the fact that they know people will mistype Microsoft. And what will happen when that happens is we will pop up something called Smart Screen. And Smart Screen says, hey, we know for a fact that the website you've tried to access is bad, is malicious. And so Smart Screen helps us prevent ourselves from doing something we shouldn't. So in this case, it says, hey, you need to not do this. You want to go back to your home screen? Yes. The other thing that happens, though, is all of that information is also logged, and we will proactively tell both you and the administrator, if set up right, that, hey, Smart Screen's working, you tried to do something, we've protected you from it. So all that preventative stuff is great, but we also, with Windows 10, have addressed the scenario of what happens if something bad does happen. And traditionally, you know, the director of the FBI has said there's two types of companies. There's companies that have been hacked, and there's companies that don't know they've been hacked, right? And the reality of it is it's very difficult after we realize, and in many cases, like the Sony breach, it was months after that happened that anyone realized that it has even happened. Many of the big cases are that late. Folks don't even know bad things have happened. So what we've done is we've introduced advanced threat protection across our entire product line. And so with Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, we, in Windows 10, effectively turn on what we like to call the flight recorder, or the black box. Now, you know, for example, a black box is not black. It's typically orange, yellow, or red. But just like an airplane that has a flight recorder that keeps track of all the things that happen on the machine or on the plane, Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection is that same kind of thing. It watches all of the behaviors of a user. So are they clicking attachments in emails? Now, 99 times out of 100, maybe even more, everything's copacetic. Everything's good, right? But on occasion, it will see bad behaviors, copying a lot of files that shouldn't be copied, typically from a SharePoint drive to a USB stick, for example, or opening a malicious email that shouldn't be opened. So what we do is with Advanced Threat Protection, we capture that information, feed it up into a cloud, into a dashboard. Now, it's important to note that this is your company's dashboard, not Microsoft's dashboard. So with Advanced Threat Protection, your security team can look at this dashboard and see what are the things that are happening in my organization. And do I see things happening? For example, do I see a malicious file that's getting moved around? Well, this isn't real time, right? A flight recorder is after the fact, but it's much closer to real time than weeks or months or years in most companies. And what's nice about this technology is I can actually drill down from this dashboard and look at a given timeline for a given machine. What are the things that have happened? Who was the user? In this case, this is Liz Bean's machine. And we see that she's had a couple issues, right? So with the dashboard, we can actually drill down into her machine And see, at some point, Liz tried to run an install.exe machine from coming out of Outlook. So someone sent an install.exe via email. And because we have that flight recorder type content, we can actually see all the steps, when Liz did it, and how far it got. What's also nice about this is that same dashboard can track, okay, Liz sent this email, not purposefully, but it happened, to 3 other people, and then they got it and they shared it on. So we now have the ability to track to the tiniest degree, where did this exposure come from, how did it get started, and how can we go back and resolve it. And again, this is all based on Windows 10 Anniversary Update with Advanced Threat Protection. So the good news is this really is another way that we focus on helping prevent that bad guy from taking our stuff, getting in our systems, and being able to track them down much further than before. So number one question I get is, well, Steve, I thought Windows 7 security is pretty good. It's what we're using today. We're real happy with that. So next few things I want to share with you are, what are we doing, what does Windows 7 have today that's good, and then what does Windows 10 have that I need to turn on or look forward to as we move to Windows 10. So this picture sort of shows where we were strong with Windows 10. And we did a good job. We had TPM. We protected our devices. We have Windows Update to keep it going, right? We had Smart Screen and Windows Firewall built in from the day one with Windows 7, so that's good. We didn't have much from an identity protection standpoint with Windows 7. Those passwords are still very much accessible, and those public and private keys are accessible, right, because they're not locked down. We've had BitLocker since early Windows 7 and been protecting hard drives, and then again, not much in the post-breach space. So for those that have upgraded old hardware or installed 32-bit, so old legacy systems, Windows 10 does bring value. So we have this concept called Trusted Boot. It's part of that health attestation thing that says, yep, when this machine boots up, it's booted up from the valid image on the hard drive through UEFI. It's good to go. We have Edge and Defender that protects us much better than it has in the past. Edge gives us a much safer browsing experience than we've had with IE. We talked quite a bit about Hello and what that does. We have Windows Information Protection, and we do have Advanced Threat Protection across the board. Now, the last slide is this story when we have it on the latest hardware, like the Surface Pro 4 and Surface Book, again, with that TPM 2.0 chip. With this latest hardware, we then bring in a lot more technology. So we have this concept of virtualization-based security that utilizes the TPM and lets us run in an encrypted virtualization space with things like Device Guard and Credential Guard. We also have, with Windows 10 on the latest device, automatic full device encryption. Now, I get the question all the time, well, device encryption and BitLocker, can I control that? Yes, BitLocker is completely controllable through your management tools and policies you use today. Then I also get much more robust enterprise quality security management and conditional access, which are all features based on making sure that we have the best, most secure environment out there. So to wrap up, I like to tell the story that, and our most proud Windows 10 moment from a security perspective, and that's the U.S. Department of Defense, and this was very widely known. U.S. Department of Defense spent a lot of time focusing on a secure desktop, right? And they have forever. And when we, early on, when we came out with Windows 10, we're like, hey, we want you to consider this. We want to work with you, partner with the entire DoD, that's 4 million Windows devices. We want to partner with you to build the best, most secure environment from an operating perspective we can, operating system perspective we can. And in fact, we got there. And about a year ago, the DoD announced that in every PC, so this is Army, Homeland Security, Navy, Marines, you name it, every Windows PC, all 4 million of them, will move to Windows 10 in the next year. Big job, big job. And if we have any DoD folks on the call, wish I could help you more. We've got all the pieces in place, but it's a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of work. But the fact that the Pentagon and Department of Defense has said, hey, Windows 10 is absolutely something we're trusting to build our entire structure on top of, I think says a lot. And really does speak to the fact that we believe Windows 10 is the single most secure operating system ever built. So with that, I want to thank everyone, and let's look at any questions that we may have. Nathan or Norman, do we have any questions?
Thank you so much, Steve. That was a great presentation. We don't have any questions at the moment, but you still have, if you have got any questions, you can write it now in the question box, and Steve will be more than happy to answer those. I can see one question. Okay, there's one question from Bruno. He's asking what security features are available with the Surface Pro 3.
So Surface Pro 3 is considered a modern device, right? It's barely a year, just a little over a year old since it's had its predecessors. So pretty much everything we talked about on that second to last slide, and we do have these slides available in a PDF for you. So all of those features are available with Windows 10 Pro or Enterprise Edition. Device Guard, Credential Guard, all those work great on a Surface Pro 3. It has the TPM 2.0 chip.
We have got next one from David Case. Are these features available now?
Yes, everything we talked about came about as part of the anniversary update that happened at the end of July. I will point out these features vary dependent on what version you're running. So Home, Pro, Enterprise, or Education. And a little trivia tidbit: Education and Enterprise, from a feature standpoint, from a security feature standpoint, are identical. The one thing that isn't included in the box with any of those licenses is Advanced Threat Protection. That is a separate item. And if you're familiar with our new subscription model for like Windows Enterprise E3, the difference between E3 and E5 is E5 brings in the Advanced Threat Protection. So we don't think Advanced Threat Protection is for everybody. Most people don't need that level of scrutiny, but if you do, it is available in part of our subscription model. Great question.
Thank you so much, Steve. Bruno has got another question. He's asking what version of Windows 10 is needed to benefit from most security features, Pro or Enterprise?
Most everything we talked about here is available in Pro. We want most of these features to be available readily to our business users, and most of our business users are on Pro. If you go to windows.com, there is a great, there's a link you can go to if you click for business, and there's a choice on there that talks about the different versions and what the different versions, what different features each version provides. But for 95% of our customers out there, Windows Pro will do everything that has all the security features needed, can be managed through Active Directory, through Group Policy, through System Center, or Indian tools. That's a great question.
Okay. There's another question from Janet York. Does this go for all new PCs with Windows 10?
Yes. So Windows 10, beautiful thing is Windows 10 is always up to date, right? So yeah, when you buy a new PC, if it doesn't have the latest version of Windows 10, it will either For most of us, it automatically updates. I have all my updates happen automatically now, just like I do on my Apple products and Android products. So I let the app updates just happen, so it's always up to date. And for businesses that control their updates through like Current Branch for Business, absolutely, when the new features are enabled, they go straight there and can work just fine. But yes, all new PCs with Windows 10 will support all the things we talked about today.
Okay. Thank you so much, Steve. That was perfect. Okay, for all of you who are asking for the slide decks, just want to let you know the copy of slide deck will be sent to you in the recording emails in the next couple of days. Still, if you have got any questions, you can email it to us at amec@onpoint.com. So thank you so much, Steve, for a great presentation, and thank you all for joining us today. Have a great week ahead.